Time is now 6:30. If everyone please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up, roll call. Don Cabela. Here. Gary Stelzman.
Here.
Saros.
Here.
Travis Irons.
Here.
Scott Sherwood. Here. Tom Sinkowitz. And Ted Dumaine is excused absence, as well as Scott Gardner. David Saros, you have voting rights. Place of Ted.
Is Ted Republican? Or is it Democrat? He's a Democrat.
Yeah, but that's been verified in the absence.
Okay, since
We have
they're
an
both
alternate,
gone.
right. We have an alternate here.
Okay.
You see.
Fair enough, just a question.
The other person who is not joining us tonight is our acting director. He too is absent. Next item, acceptance of the minutes from the June 19, 2019 meeting. Minutes have been distributed. Any questions, discussion?
Motion on minutes be accepted as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. No abstentions. Motion carries. All right, next item under new business. Item A, update from the police department regarding the communications issue. So I put this on the agenda because I realized that it happened, the issue occurred after our last Board of Finance meeting, and I know some in the audience here might not have heard of it. Some did, I know for a fact, but I thought it best that we get an update on it because it was a very big issue that happened in regards to communications. And that is why I invited our chief of the police department out with us this evening, so he could just give us a very brief summary as far as what was the severity of that issue and what's being done to address it. So, Chief?
Good evening. Thank you. After I asked for the line item transfers that you approved on June 19th of last month, 4 days later on a Sunday, our communications, what we call two-way radios from dispatch center to our cars and officer to dispatch center or officer to officer or car to car, completely went down. I sent Monday morning, first thing I sent the first selectman and I sent the chairman of the Board of Finance an explanation on what took place and what happened. Obviously, we need communications. I had to pay a company, JNS Radio. They came out. We had a problem, a malfunction up on our tower on Econ Hill. That was fixed. The repeater was bad and a few other things that they needed to fix and adjust. That cost a little over $3,000, and I had already asked you for a line item transfer, so I have overrun my supplies and expense line item again. But I want to explain to you why and how, because you've already approved that. I'm going to come back probably next month when we do all of the other line item transfers again and ask you for a line item adjustment, and that's why that reason took place 4 days after you approved those. Do you have any questions on what may have happened or anything I can expound?
They just replaced the repeater?
The repeater and a few other things inside of the cabinet that went wrong because of the repeater going down. So we were probably back up in about 2 to 3 hours. Winnebog Valley 911 Community Dispatch, they took over for us. They dispatched us to any drop 911 calls. And we did have communications. We had communication through our dispatch and officer to officer. So it was a difficult 3 hours, but no 911 calls were lost or dropped.
And again, just for clarification, I wanted to just get that brief update from the chief as far as what happened. The reason why we're not actually acting and considering on the line of transfer is because it is yet to go to the Board of Selectmen, but will, like the chief said, be coming in the near future. So once that happens, then we will be discussing and bringing it up again.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next item, summary of the year-end budget analysis for the Board of Ed and updates on the MBR issue. So I invited Ken, Christy out, So we have a handout that was distributed this evening to the Board of Finance, which I appreciate from Ken, summarizing what he's going to touch on briefly. Ken?
If you don't mind, I'll move close to save the camera. The front page is all the details. So the first thing I gave you is an attachment. On July 8th, I wrote back to Kathy Dempsey. She is the Chief Financial Officer for the state of Connecticut, CSDE. I had written to her prior because in order to request the removal of the NBR violation, one of the requirements is that you have to prove the evidence, which means there has to be minutes of a town meeting or a town referendum that says, in fact, you did adjust the budget. So I asked for that from Louisa Tracus. She gave me an electronic copy. I forwarded that to her and Kevin Chambers, and I said the Board of Finances respectfully asked that we get the confirmation so we know going into the new year. I got no answer. Could have been the end of the year, could have been whatever. On July 8th, I had another conversation with the chair of the committee, Sinkwitz, and he said, is there a way we can get that confirmation? I wrote again, and as you can see on the first page attachment, her statement is, Plainfield is now in compliance with the MBR for the 2018-19 fiscal year. And you'll see when we go through the budget that not only are in compliance with 2018-19, you're now in compliance for 19-20 because you paralleled the amount of money that you had that you now advanced to the school department of the 551,977, and then you dropped it only by 50,000, which is under the ECS cut. So no matter what happens, you're in compliance for the following year as well. So you actually have 2 years compliance, which is good. That's helpful. So number one, the answer is, do we have evidence? Yes. Is it written? Yes. We're going to get a formal letter from the Department of Ed with letterhead, but the email is the best you can do for a quick response. You should all be happy. It took a while to get here. We got here, and we did it before June 30th. We did that. So congratulations, and thank you to all. Seriously, it's no easy challenge to take on that, to basically explain to a public why you're going to add, you know, 551,977 with a promise it won't be spent, and people were kind enough to vote it in, but you're going to see on the next one. The second one was, could we have an end of the year budget statement given to us? So you're going to see that you have attachments 2 and 3. If you're familiar with the school budget, attachment 2 is always the summary, and attachment 3 is the line item code. It just shows you where we spent our money to get to those numbers. So one is the summary, and then one of them is the detail. It doesn't tell you line item, we spent 5 pencils. It tells you in all of the supplies we spent under 80,000. Okay, so under in the front, number 2, the fourth column, if you're looking at the summary page called attachment 2, the fourth column, counting the words as column 1, actual 16-17, actual 17-18, and then approved 18-19, that fourth column shows that when we started the year, we had 35,428,370. That's important for you to remember because at the end of this year, we want to spend or under-expend 35,428,370 because that's what you gave us as a town before you made an adjustment. Under column 5, you're going to see that that total, because of the town referendum on June 5th, went up to 35,980,347. So in the column after number 4, you'll see that it says 35,980,347. And that adds the 551,977, which gets you past the MBR violation. You're now made happy with the state. Okay, so that includes the 551. Now you have column 6. And column 6 is the next one. It says, so how much did we spend? And we actually spent 35,422,164. So you see the good number? The 35,422,164 is less than the original 35,428,370. So in that column 6, you'll see not only the fact that the number 35,422,164 directly underneath it says that we underexpended the new and improved the new appropriation from the town with the adjustment, which was the 35,980,000, we underexpended by 558. And what we wanted to show you is how did the 558 break down to what was given to us. And we called it a committed give back of 551,977. That money has never been taken out. We never got the money, we never spent the money, never came out of the fund balance. So we're good? And then the second part was, in addition to the 551, there's a little more, and that what's left over is about $6,206. So we're actually giving back to the town $6,000 from the original $35,422. So we have an underrun of $6,206. And I can tell you, as much as I'm pleased to tell you that we gave that money back, and we've done that virtually every year except the year that we had a late notification from DAPO, which was about $150,000, and we had to cover it. That was a couple of years ago. Except for that year, virtually we have always given the money back to the town. At the end, we ensure that we never overextend the budget. That was a fluke, and at the time we never wanted to attribute it to special ed excess. That's where the cost came from, but that's fine. The reason it's important that I wanted to bring it up is because I'm never excited to give money back. I wish I could have spent more on children, but throughout the whole year, we didn't know where MBR was going. We froze our budgets as early as March. And I didn't make a lot of friends with my administrative colleagues because they kept saying, but we promised we'd get this, and we said we need that, and we just said, we just don't know. And it's for the Board of Finance, just for your understanding, that we actually put these protections in place so that we're not overspending. When we knew that the year was going to now end okay, we then released as much as we could, and we said, give us your first priority projects and we'll buy what we can across the districts. You don't give it all to the high school, you don't give it all to Shepherd Hill, and everyone had to put their priorities, and we met all of their first priorities. And once we did that, and made up for some of the expenses each-chip that we wanted to make sure that we had completely funded, because that's a balance that we have to protect the community. But we don't underfund it, we fund it based on, we originally projected we needed 100,000 more, but we had less people come in. It's still a bill due, but you don't have to pay it because the people aren't there. We paid up our e-chip, we paid up everything, we made it through the year with 6,000. So to the good of the school, and to understand it, I want you to know we always try to come in under budget by at least that 6,000 to 10,000, and that the reason for it being even any money is because we needed to put in some sanctions along the way just to make sure that we weren't going to say, I don't know how we're going to get through the rest of the year because we're 30,000 over. You didn't need to hear that this year. You needed to know we were doing. Those are the two questions asked of us. I'm just going to show you. I won't refer to number 3 unless the question is what happens next year. So all I wanted to tell you is we can't give you the budget of this year without just showing you what you now already approved for next year. So after column 6, you see what the town approved on 6/3/2019, and that is $35,930,347. So the difference between $35,930,000, right, column 7, and what you just adjusted our end of the year, $35,980,000, there's a $50,000 reduction. You didn't reduce us because we only voted in the $35,930,000. You reduced from the existing year that ended just prior, June 30th, because you had to meet the MBR, and you reduced the $50,000 because the voters said we're not going to give you that much money, and both the town and the schools reduced by about $50,000 to show good faith to the public. So there's the $50,000 that was reduced from this year. Why is that not another looming debt? It isn't, because ECS was cut by $114,000. So when they look at whether you are in or not within keeping, and if you remember MBR discussions, you'll know that the MBR is calculated, and they also calculate for poverty and some other factors. If you remember, it's not an exact number. So the MBR we would project to be about 50,000 less anyways. So we know that you're in good stead. I did talk to some people at the department. They said, you're definitely in good keeping for the next year. You should be okay. And I know that at some point in the future, we'll have to have that discussion on reconciling that money. The board does meet the second week of August, and any thoughts that come through from the Board of Finance, they can take under advisement. They haven't had a meeting since June. I can't, you know we do our job, we just proved it, we didn't spend any of the money, we turned it back plus some under expenditure. And the board is always willing and appropriate to address what the Board of Finance needs. I offered something, but I don't want to discuss it, it's not on your agenda, but it's just to look at, now that we know a little bit about MDR a little bit more, maybe we can look at things a little differently and think, how do we work to the advantage of the town, the schools, and the children? You know, there's some things I think we can talk about, and I think we can do it in good faith. So, the 1 and 2 is what was asked for. If there are questions on, I do have a tendency to speak fast, but I also have a tendency to stop at the end and say, if there are questions, please ask us. I'm not afraid to get us questions.
Questions, discussion? As Ken said, obviously we can get some questions that possibly come up in the near future. I certainly like the idea, Ken, of, it's good to kind of reflect on this past year, but also going forward. I mean, it's certainly not going to get any easier working with the state. I like that you put here, of course, due to the ECS reduction, Plainfield will not violate NPR because that's one less thing that we want to have to deal with in the coming year. But the point I'm getting to is that with upcoming Board of Ed meetings, when they do start meeting again, I certainly would highly encourage any Board of Finance members. I know I've tried to attend as many as I can, especially during the budget season. But if you do come up with a list of, again, certain thoughts or concerns, obviously looking ahead when we start talking, which will not be very long before we start talking about 2020 and 2021. I think it's good to take the early on approach of bring it up at a Board of Ed meeting, have time to discuss it and kind of digest it a bit. There's really no reason why we have to wait until January, February, March to start talking about it. And I like that this thought process of we know that there's going to be cuts in the future, and we know that things are not going to get easier, but it's good to plan ahead and prepare.
If I may piggyback on this, offer briefly, if the Board of Finance elected at some point, because in the formality of a meeting, everything is written, but if you wanted to have, for example, a workshop, I think there's some information we can provide to you about the finances of the school district. And I just want to give you one example that hopefully will surprise people and make them happy. But for the past 10 years, we shifted from like Anthem Blue and Cigna to Egypt. And I gave to a couple of people and to our administrators that from 2010-11 to 2014, 5-year term, we went up 22% in healthcare costs. And anybody in the industry knows how rapidly that went up. So 22% growth. If you projected that growth over the next 5 years to the current time, 2019, you expect a 22% growth. And my colleagues tell me that they average approximately 3 to 5% per year. That does not seem unrealistic. We, in fact, in Plainfield schools, because we're in Egypt, flat funded for 5 years. The money that we paid in 2014 was about $4.8 million, and the money we paid last year is $4.7 million. It's $100,000 less for a drop. So if we could share some of the strategies that we're doing to show you that saving 22% is saving $1 million. 20% of $5 million is $1 million. The public may not know that, but if we could talk about some of the finances just openly about it, you may be able to understand some of the things that we think we're putting in place that are cost effective for you. On the other side, we need to talk about heating systems. So I think there's a lot of things that maybe take like a workshop on that. And we're welcome to join you if you ever want that. Yeah, I don't want to direct you, I just wanted to know we'd be open to it.
That's fine, Ken, but you did bring up that point, so I'll just mention that in regards to school expenses with the heating system. I know that's something that you said, that's going to be addressed, needs to be addressed sooner rather than later, but that's also a very lengthy process, I remember as you were talking about. And going out to bond, of course, there's concern with that, as far as what are the actual figures going to be, and kind of what's the priority list. My assumption would be just from my kind of studying and knowledge of the schools, I assume the high school would be at the top of the list as one issue, but I know all the buildings have some type of deficiency in one way or another. So one of the things I'd like to do is at some point down the road, a future Board of Finance meeting, is to maybe have you back here after you've maybe put together like a committee, obviously it's going to look into the heating system, and kind of get an idea of what would your timeline be in which you'd like to look into that. And probably do that periodically. Once the process has started, periodic updates to the Board of Finance, or where do we stand with that? Because that's a monumental task, obviously.
address in the meeting.
I think the success that you've shown by taking the time and getting the MBR done right, and we did it right, is just evidence that if we can have this conversation, it would be great. And the answer is absolutely yes. We will definitely report by the Board of Finance, whatever you ask for.
So this is one of the things that I was talking to Tom about, and this is what concerns me going into next year. So we know the governor's already gonna pass the 228,000 ECS fund cut. We know there's raises of whatever, say 250, I'm gonna use round numbers. We know each hit's gonna go up another 200,000. So now we're already staring at roughly $725,000 going in. We already saw what happened with this last budget season. So what's the Board of Ed gonna do from now until next April, February, whatever, to look at that $700,000? Because we know, I mean, let's talk reality here, is they're not gonna pass, nobody's gonna pass an excess $700,000 when the budget book comes. I mean, I think we all know that. So I guess, I'd be more than happy, I think both groups should form a committee with the BOF and form a committee with the DOE, there should be separate meetings. I mean, I know we're getting into number 3, but I'm looking at what Ron put out. I mean, and this is where something with the town has to come to the table. It's great we finished $1.3 million under budget, but that's $1.3 million we use from tax money that if we get the town budget a lot closer, then people can eat that. You work it into the Board of Ed. That's why I think the town has to come with the Board of Ed and come to better numbers than what I'm seeing for what Ron put out. Which, again, I know we'll discuss in part 3, but that was my concern with Tom, was that, I have to start hearing, what are we gonna do to close that $725,000 gap that we know is gonna be there? I agree, teachers, everybody deserves raises, I'm not saying no raises, but what else can there be done? And I think the town has to step up on that side too, which again, we get into number 3 when we get there.
It's important, but as we said, if you remember we had a discussion about the special ed excess, we heard 3 times, if you give half that money, we're gonna lose it in the fund balance. And at the end of the year, now you're saying it looks like a 1.3 excess, right? We've been trying to say that for how long, that we don't believe it's gonna be a crisis to the public. When we don't have the right facts, people get anxious. I think there's merit in making sure that we just have the right facts. What is it gonna look like? Is he gonna cut 114? We know there's 114,000 next year. And what our current contracts are already locked in. Let's give you the real contract. Look at the real numbers. There's nothing to hide.
Right, do the numbers now, do them way ahead of time so we can look at everything all together.
That's the easy part. It's just having a conversation so that the trust on both sides is, we see the real numbers, we get it, here's what we do.
And if we do it ahead of time, it stops the whole, panic type of thing. You come in with unrealistic numbers and then everybody starts panicking. And if we do this ahead of time, we cut the number down to a reasonable number and throw it out the first time, the better shot we'll have at passing.
Any other questions? But I do thank you. I thank you for the time. We made some good decisions and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. All right, next item to review current fiscal year 2018-19, or actually, yep. Notice that. 19-20 budget statement. Oh, yeah, we will be updating that. So Ron could not be with us this evening. One of the things I did forward to the Board of Finance is a summary along with the budget statement. So everybody should have a copy of that. I know Jody had some extra copies. So review that if you haven't already, and any questions, discussions.
So as I just stated, so again, it's great to see that all these expenses were cut to make up a $1.3 million surplus, but that's also bad budgeting. We basically, we budgeted for $10.3 million in expenses, we only spent 9. On the surface, you go, wow, that's awesome. But in the end of it all, you gotta sit there and go, well, why were we over budget by $1.3 million? Because that's $1.3 million we took from the tax base that we shouldn't have taken. That's just, and we wonder, and the year before that, just get down there, the year before that was $950,000. $250,000. So we're up to 2.2 million the last 2 years that we over budgeted expense-wise. I mean, we're not even adding in the extra revenue in here, so it's like, what? The town has to get better at their budget, so that we can help the Board of Ed, and that's my whole point. If you shave that down and you can get it less, that's again, more money that can kind of sort of be shifted towards the Board of Ed. It's gotta be, that's like 12% off budgeting. I don't understand that. I wish Kathy was here because I want to talk to her about it, because it doesn't, it's a head scratcher. Somebody who has to do budgets for a bunch of different departments. If I did that in the private world, I wouldn't have a job. My boss would go, hey, thanks, but why are your numbers so far off? We're doing this all the time. We have to be within like 2% of what we propose as our budget, whether it's minus or plus. He doesn't care either way. But as a company, you can't invest, you can't know what to invest if you don't have real numbers you're dealing with. So to me, this tells me this isn't real numbers that were thrown out there. You know, we talked about no fluff in the budget. Well, we already said $1.3 million of fluff in last year's budget. Again, kudos for only spending $9 million, but that just makes it really, really, really bad budgeting. We gotta change that, because it's not fair to the taxpayer, and it may not be fair to the Board of Ed at some point down the road. And I didn't get to go line item by line item to see exactly where all these savings came from, but it's gotta be fixed. Now, it does say in here, I mean, it may not finish at 1.3 because there are expenses that still have to be put in, but how much is there to put in? And this should be fairly complete since it is the middle of July. Like, I look at health insurance was one of the ones I was looking at. Do we still have to make a payment, or did we really save $376,000 on health insurance? If we did, I don't know how the heck we did that. Well, Kathy, actually. Kelly, whoever did it before that, but I mean, that's a big number. Obviously, there's gotta be a pension payment in here, because it's $155,803. We must still owe a pension payment, I would gather. That's why it'll come closer than the 1.3 million, but how close is it gonna get? Is it gonna be like the previous year where it's 950,000? That's still, if you go 950,000, 950,000, that's still 1.9 million over 2 years. People don't want to see that. You know, great, it'll go into the fund balance, but then, again, that just means you overtax everybody to put money in a savings account.
Yeah, but that also helps for those 5-year long-term goal plans of fixing the system. I understand your point. I pay taxes in the town too. We all do. But at some point, we have roofs right now that are leaking that are unsafe. So maybe we didn't spend it and we should have, is what the problem is.
Well, right. And then instead, so back to the roof, so instead this year we're taking it out of the fund balance.
Agreed. Well, and why is the fund balance big? Because you just said, last year we put it in there. We put it
Right.
there.
But that's, but still, so 950,000 is almost the whole mill.
The money's
So-
always gonna come from the taxpayers, whether you pull it from the fund balance or not, because it got there from the taxpayers to
Right.
start with.
Right. So budget right, so you don't have a $950,000.
I'm not arguing about budgeting that. We have 1/12 of the year to put in 1 month probably.
Yeah.
So there could be, you know.
Well, like I
it could
said,
be a
it's,
1/12, it could be less.
Like I said, we have to owe an insurance payment, is my guess, and we have to owe a pension payment. That would be about 500,000.
Almost.
But if that's the case, then he shouldn't have done this yet until he had all the payments in. He should have waited until August to put this out like that. Because otherwise it looks really bad. If we're sitting there talking about 1.3 million and then it doesn't go down to 800,000, what's it go down to?
We don't know.
You're right.
I doubt it's 1.3, it's lower than that.
Yeah.
We'll both agree.
But let's say it's 800,000, you know, it's still, like you said, we should have paid for the roof and not put it in this year's budget. You know, that would have been 150,000. But that's the other thing, so another thing that, again, I wish Kathy was here and hopefully she'll be here in August, but there's things we're spending money on that are not in the budget. And we're not being asked as far as the Board of Finance, anything over $10,000, we're supposed to be, that's not in the budget, we're supposed to be asked about. The DEF lighting, that we spent $64,000 on, never came in front of the Board of Finance. We haven't seen a contract. There's a 150-page contract out there with the Board of Finance that I saw. And we spent $67,000 on replacing a whole bunch of lighting. Where'd that go? Why was that never brought in front of the Board of Finance in the past? That's supposed to be brought in front of us. You could argue the same thing on the grant. It was $19,500. It's still over $10,000. Yet we're going to get money back, but why is that not brought in front of the Board of Finance too? There's things, so there's even more money being spent that we don't even know about. That's why I asked you last year to really, if we want to manage, which is what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to manage the finances, we should really be getting every month what was spent in each line item. Because you can sit there and look at the sheet all day long. It only tells you certain things, but we should be getting all the line item information at the end. We're the Board of Finance. Why would we never, ever, and I get it, it's never been done with the town of Plainfield, but why not? Because you see where the DEF money is spent. It's in different line items. Buried in different line items. But it's, you know, again, Kathy's not here to answer for it, so it's something that needs to be put on the August agenda. That's when I sent you the email the other day about spending outside the budget. We need to have that discussion in front of her. It is the Board of Finance. Because we can't just be sending $64,000 because they want to do an energy audit, but not bring it in front of us. Maybe it would have been voted yes, and go ahead and do it. Hey, my expenses are down, so let's vote for, let me throw it in front of the Board of Finance and see if they want to do this. But instead, it's not. And it's not fair to us, because this is what we're supposed to be here to govern. And we're not allowed to do that. Any other discussion, questions in regards to the budget revenue statement?
I have a question on the first page. I don't know. The introduction is there.
Yeah.
Okay. What's this about a new audit? Did somebody choose one already? Or not?
I don't know if it's been chosen, and that's another one that Kathy was there to double check with her, but I remember they mentioned, yes, it was time to get a new one,
Right.
but I hadn't heard who it
Should
should
be
be.
the board of finance that choose the new audit from.
Mhm.
Put it in the charter.
Yeah.
Right. So, we haven't, so it has not been. I will follow up on that. questions, discussion? No? Okay. Moving on to citizen participation. I open the floor.
Kevin Cunningham, 405 Moose Pond Road. 3 items to follow up on what was mentioned before. The DEF, it was stated in the last meeting by Kathy, well, you can think of it as a loan. It's a loan. According to the town charter, section 2.5A, if it's you're going out for a bond or a loan, you have to come in for the Board of Finance. So I don't understand why that wasn't even brought to you ahead of time, just before that. Say, look, we're going to go out for it, and what do you guys think? Kind of the same thing with the annex grant. The annex grant for 19.5. At this point, you basically have no control over that because they've already done the work. It's got to be paid. So if a check for 19.5 goes to the state, again, it should have been talked about as soon as they said, look, there's a grant available, and let's talk about it to the town and to you. The other thing was, did you happen to realize on the town website, on the RFPs, there's actually something called a title search position? Were you aware of that? Do we know what that is? How much money is being expended for it? And I didn't see anything in the budget for it, and I didn't see anything in the 5-year cap for it. That's why I'm asking.
You said it's on the website?
Yep. Again, if it's expended, if it's going to be expended, if it's going to be expended, it would be nice to know ahead of time what it's for and why, and just a brief explanation. I'm going to guess that most of these things would have been approved, but it'd be nice to go through the process that's mentioned in the town charter. So, all right, that's it.
Okay. And Kevin, just to follow up as far as those coming before the Board of Finance, I remember when you first brought it up, obviously it's quite a while ago, I had actually asked Kathy if that was the plan, and that even though it was after the fact, still, if it was going to be done. And I did get the official answer from her that no, it was not going to after it moved forward. So I'm just letting you know that that was taken into consideration. I did follow up on it, but as you stated, it did not happen.
Okay.
Other citizen participation.
As you guys probably know, Dan Real, 20 Doherty Ave, you guys still know the town is still suing itself. And I believe it was either the last meeting or the meeting before that, there was a $31,000 transfer for the legal budget. What I would suggest, if they don't shut this down, they have a conference call on July 23rd. But if they don't shut that suit down, I would suggest refusing any transfers until they do. I think, as I pointed out last time I was here, that suit's going to run north of $60,000. It's a complete waste of money for the town to sue itself. Maybe they're looking on the bright side, they're figuring no matter what, the town will win, but the town will also lose. As far as older buildings go, or actually not so older buildings in the case of the high school, I would kind of just a general suggestion, idea maybe, instead of like us saying, there's something broken. If we're looking at a building less than 20 years old, we should probably think about, seeing if there's a construction warranty or, a bond. I mean, just in case something wasn't done quite right before we say, we've got to go out and bond something or borrow money or tax people. Because you never know. I mean, the construction or the contractor might have a policy. Their insurance carrier might be willing to come in and say, yeah, we didn't build it right, we'll fix it. But other than that, I would just say going forward in the future, especially with some items that Scott brought up and some items that Kevin brought up, I would encourage the board to just think about not being obstinate, but just think more about saying no. Because I think the reason we've mismanaged money in the past is we haven't thought a little more, and we've been a little afraid to say no. I mean, it's healthy sometimes. I think if we said no more, we wouldn't be in a situation where we lost our town charter, we still haven't figured out which one we're using, and we're suing ourselves right now. So I think we just do that, we'll be in a lot better shape, and we'll find it easier to save money, and people that are spending a little too freely and recklessly might think twice.
Just to follow up on that, Ken, I remember at one point when we had talked about, this was quite a few months ago, the heating system, as far as how did we get to this point, and and as far as one of the biggest issues being with the high school, but also being the newer building, wasn't part of the problem with that is that it's basically an obsolete system now, and that you can't, like, we can't like replace it or make do with it, but like it has to like be redone completely.
In the schools that are 30 to 40 years old when it was installed, such as PMS, they're using a system that the parts are no longer available. The high school is a less than 15-year-old system. There are some things that are happening that can be looked at under warranty. Under the majority of the schools, they're all pretty much 35-year-old systems. And we do have a very comprehensive report that the town is in receipt of. During the roof renovations, they subcontracted the study of the HVAC system. We have a cost, we have detail, we have what the change should be, etc. But a new study would tell us whether there are energy credits, whether there's some other things that we can look at for grants. So there's always work to do. But yeah, the obsolete ones are definitely all at the high school. They exceed everything, warranty and everything.
Other citizens participation?
Matt Radant, Musa, real easy question. What is the 18-19 fiscal year spend that we were 1.3 million off from? What does it say on the statement?
The spend for 2018, what he has on here right now is 9 million. 9081476.
9081
476.
476.
And again, looking at this, there is more money that just hasn't been done, but still,
Right.
what is the real number?
Does it say where the cutoff was for that purpose, knowing that there could be other receipts? Or is that just dated through June 30?
He didn't really put it.
He didn't,
It
yeah.
says below review financial statements, general fund budget through July 11th.
Yeah.
Okay. August awaits. Thank you.
Other citizen participation?
You know, about the audit, I thought there was a cutoff period for us to be within a contract with a new auditing company, because I spoke to Ron at one of the previous meetings. So where are we at with the auditing company? Have we gotten one?
Yeah, no, that, as Donna brought that up before, I'm actually going to be following up with that both with Ron and Kathy, because I remember when you brought it up, so I had also asked him about it at that time. He hadn't named one specifically, and I don't remember off the top of my head when the cutoff was, but I am curious too, because as it's been in the past, as Don said, we have yet to discuss it and consider, so.
Like,
That- that's
my
what we
understanding was
verified.
there was actually a cutoff date we were supposed to be contracted with one. And if we are not within that contract period, we're gonna be in some trouble. So I think it's very important and very pertinent that as the chair of the Board of Finance, you address him on that, or Kathy, and get back to the public as soon as possible with an answer.
And I will.
Especially if something that important.
Thank you. Okay, other citizen participation? No, in that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion we adjourn. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.